Hi, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Angela.
And I'm Wesley.
Today we're doing the second half of a two-day article entitled A Brief Look at the History of Houses.
今天我们看的是关于房屋的大小事这篇文章的第二部分。
So yesterday we really did have a brief look at the history of houses, and we didn't really talk about the history so much as we talked about the argument of when the first actual house was built. Because, people have been living in structures of various kinds, but what we're talking about is the first structure that was purpose-built to be a house. It was specifically built for people to live in and was meant to be permanent. It wasn't a temporary structure that was just there for a season.
昨天我们大概文章第一部分呢，主要谈的这是作为永久性居住的或者长久性居住的房子啊，大概什么时候出现的啊？那这个因为如果说在那个之前的话，游牧民族其实不见得需要这种永久性的房屋。
So, today we're kind of going to take a different tack. We're going to talk about what are the elements in play? Like, how do you build a house? Like, basically, what is a house for? What's it going to do? And what are you trying to fight against? What are you trying to avoid? Or what are you trying to deal with when you build a house?
好，那今天我们这篇文章呢，其实主要谈的就是我们在盖房子的时候或者设计房子的时候要考虑的一些很重要的事情。
So let's read through our article and then go back through it. Whether it's a concrete apartment building or a wooden house, weather plays a big role in the construction and maintenance of homes. Rain. One of the biggest factors that comes into play is rainfall. Leaky roofs, which usually require expensive repairs, are a common problem. However, there are several other areas, such as skylights and chimneys, where water can seep into houses if the ceiling material is damaged. If not properly addressed, water leakage can result in serious damage as rot and mold take root. Another area where water poses a threat to homes is related to a structure's foundation. More specifically, a building's stability is partially dependent on how well the soil surrounding it can absorb rain. When there is too much water to be drained away by the soil, basement leaks can occur. In fact, it has been estimated that 98% of basements in the United States are prone to some type of water damage. Snow. In addition to the substantial damage to houses caused by rain, another form of precipitation poses a potential problem in certain climates. Snow, particularly the variety with a wet, heavy form, is a threat. So builders typically factor this in when constructing roofs to ensure they don't sag, crack, or collapse under the strain. Sun and wind. Meanwhile, other elements, namely the sun and wind, also impact homes over time. The strong heat in some regions takes a heavy toll on wood, weakening it and causing it to age faster than normal. High wind, such as that found in hurricanes, tornadoes, and other powerful storm systems, can tear off parts of houses. Thus, good home construction and maintenance are essential. I feel like this article was kind of written from the point of view of the United States. Because in the United States, like the majority of houses are built out of wood. And now that I live in a concrete house, I just appreciate concrete houses so much more. I used to be like, concrete is an inferior building material because it uses a lot of energy and blah, 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 blah. And now I'm like, concrete is the only thing you want to be in a typhoon. Yeah. How could you even consider being in a wooden house in Florida? Why does nobody in Florida build their houses out of concrete is what I want to know.
好，所以呢，这个 Angela 是说，这个因为现在在台湾住的房子，它都是钢筋水泥的啊。他以前认为钢筋水泥是很不环保的啊，但是其实如果说像你有你住的地方有台风啊，有什么的话，其实钢筋水泥的房子是比较坚固的。那如果是木头房子的话，你会有很多需要担心的地方。
Like my structures professor talked about, he's like, he said he was visiting a friend who was building a house. The friend had specifically invited him to make sure that the contractor was building the house right. And so he showed him around and he's like, isn't this house great? And my structures professor goes, yes, but if there's a typhoon, you should leave immediately. And the guy's like, what? Why? And he's like, they are using a machine to screw the windows and the window protections in. And the guy's like, well, what's the problem with that? He's like, when you're using a machine, you can't tell if you're screwing into wood or you're screwing into empty air. Make them screw it in by hand and they'll know. But I mean, the contractor doesn't want to do that because it takes much longer.
Yeah, 所以这个 Angela 老师说，他因为 Angela 老师他是学建筑的哈，那以前他的这个结构的教授呢说，他去看朋友的房子啊，盖得很漂亮，可是呢，那个教授跟那朋友讲说，如果台风来了，你赶快跑啊！为什么呢？原因之一是因为他们是用机器把那个房子把它钉在一起锁在一起。那用机器锁或者钉窗户的话，会有一个问题，就机器它不知道它穿过去是空气，还是说这个钉子真的是扎到了木头里面去。好，所以你没有办法保证这个东西是很坚固的。
Yeah. I mean, specifically the windows.
尤其是窗户呀，真的是好。如果窗户没装好的话，这个台风一来，会漏水，会干嘛的？这个房子吹掉了，等等都有可能。
Yeah, or you just lose your window completely.
Yeah, right. 或者整个窗户就不见了。Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, how you build your building is everything. So let's talk about the article. It says whether it's a concrete apartment building, so a building composed of many apartments built of concrete, or a wooden house, a single-family home, as they say in the United States, weather plays a big role in the construction and maintenance of homes. So you have to consider weather when you're building and also keeping up a home. Maintenance is just as important as construction, especially if you live in a wooden house. Like concrete houses, you can get away with not doing anything for a long time. But wooden houses, you have to basically be at them every single year.
好，所以呢，他说不管是个 concrete 就是水泥或者混凝土的 apartment building 一个公寓建筑或者是个 wooden house 或者是个木造的房屋不管是怎么样，天气都 plays a big role 扮演重要的角色，在 construction 在建造还有在 maintenance 在维护这个 homes 方面，天气都很重要那其实如果是钢筋混凝土的这个房子呢，比较不需要去维修的但是如果你住的是那个木造房子的话呢，那大概你每一年都要去注意它的状况都要去维修要维护。
So here's our next sections are all sections of weather and what the house has to do to deal with them. So the first section is rain. One of the biggest factors, one of the biggest issues that comes into play that will be an issue for you is rainfall.
那有一个最大的 factors 就是因素 that comes into play. To come into play 就是 to become a factor in a situation 或者是 to have an effect 或者是 influence 就是它扮演一个角色，它具有影响力要考虑的所以呢，有一个很重要的因素要考虑的就是 rainfall 降雨或者降雨量。
And as we in Taiwan know, leaky roofs are a common problem. It doesn't matter what you've built your house out of. Leaky roofs are going to happen somewhere, and they're such a pain to solve. And it usually requires expensive repairs. And half of the expense is just figuring out where the darn water is coming from.
Yeah. 好，所以呢 leaky roofs 就是会漏水的屋顶屋顶漏水是个 common problem 是个常见的问题那在台湾虽然说钢筋混凝土的房子，但是也是一样这个屋顶漏水非常的讨厌。好，那刚刚 Angela 老师讲说这里也有讲到，它通常会 require 需要 expensive repairs 很昂贵的修理费。那其中一个最麻烦最昂贵的部分就是你要抓漏我们台湾讲抓漏，你要抓出来那个是哪里在漏，那你抓出来之后才能处理，而且处理呢不见得能处理得好，所以很多就干脆就在屋顶上面再盖一层。
I'm going to say though, everyone's like, oh, roof repairs are so expensive and they take so long. And that's because everybody's a coward. Nobody wants to be like, replace the roof. So they'll try to do all these temporary small things, which never work because the answer is always replace the whole roof. Or if it's a concrete house and you can't replace the roof, put another roof on top.
Yeah.
That is generally the only answer, but no one wants to spend that kind of money. And so they mess around doing all these other tiny repairs and then they face the music.
Yeah, 好，所以这个其实屋顶漏水大概最好的办法就是把整个屋顶重新换掉因为你那样子修，其实修东补西的 问题会很多啊。那如果说你不想换整个或者不方便换的话呢，另外一个办法就是在你的屋顶上面再加一层屋顶啊，就盖个铁皮屋顶啊之类的啊，所以真的屋顶漏是很麻烦的。
So there are several other areas which, just besides the roof, have very specific problems, like skylights. A skylight is a window set into the roof. And you're asking for trouble, but the thing is, skylights are so beautiful and they let light in the house in such a lovely way that sometimes it's worth the trouble. If you're going to buy a skylight, get a German company. They know what they're doing. And so chimneys is the other issue. Basically, anything that penetrates your roof is going to cause a leaking problem because you have to seal up the hole you just made. And water can seep into houses if the ceiling material is damaged. And even if it's not damaged, ceiling material over time will age and crack and shrink. And so you have to constantly be aware. You have to check on that material and replace it if necessary.
但是呢，他说 there are several other areas， 还有一些其他的区域哈，例如什么 skylights 就是天窗啊，就是在屋顶上开了一个天窗啊，这个很漂亮，因为光可以这样照进来，但是也很容易漏水啊。还有 chimneys 烟囱啊，所以任何你在屋顶上开的洞都可能造成问题啊，因为在这些地方呢 water 可以 seep 可以渗漏 into houses 啊，那如果说这个 ceiling material 就是用来密封的那个材料 is damaged， 如果受到损坏的话，那水就会漏进来。好，而且有时候它不是损坏，它可能是因为时间一久，它可能就硬化了，可能就会有裂缝了。那这些都是需要去维修的东西。
If not properly addressed is a great word here. It means to take care of the problem or to deal with the problem. And if you don't properly address the problem, water leakage can result in serious damage, especially if your house is wooden and especially if your ceiling is held up by wooden beams. Serious damage as rot and mold take root. But even in concrete houses, this serious damage can happen.
好，所以 if not properly addressed 在这里就是处理的意思。如果你没有适当的处理的话呢，那 water leakage 就是这个漏水呢，它可以 result in 会造成 serious damage 严重的损害 as 就是随着rot 就是腐烂，还有 mold 霉菌 take root 生根to become to be established 所以如果漏水，然后你房子开始出现有些地方腐烂了，木头腐烂了，或者是有霉菌的话，那问题就会开始越来越大。
Another area where water poses a threat or can be a real problem to homes is related to a structure's foundation. And honestly, this is the two main areas of the house. You need a roof and you need a foundation. And if either one is bad, your whole thing is bad. The foundation is what? It's the thing your building sits on. Because your house doesn't sit straight on the ground, especially not if it's soft soil. You need to build a base for the house.
所以 foundation 就是地基的意思。好，这一句话他讲说 another area 另外一个地方 where water 在这些地方水会 poses a threat 就是对什么什么造成威胁。好，所以另外一个地方水会对于 homes 对于住家造成威胁的另外一个地方呢 is related to 和什么有关呢？和structures 和建筑的 foundation 地基有关。
So if you're not building on rock directly, a building's stability is partially dependent on how well the soil surrounding it and under it can absorb rain or also drain the rain away. So if the soil around your house becomes saturated easily, then that means that your house could actually float up or shift or tip. So like the water running around your house or going into the into the soil under your foundation can ruin the levelness of your house. It's kind of scary how much a really big rain can affect a small house.
好，所以呢 more specifically 就是更具体的说一个建筑物它的 stability 它的稳固或者稳定性 is partially dependent on 就是 partially 部分的 is dependent on 就是是什么而定呢？是 how well the soil surrounding it 就是指 building 所以围绕着这个建筑的土壤它是 对于 absorb 吸收 rain 雨水这方面它做得多好啊 How well the soil surrounding it can absorb rain。 好，那刚刚这 Angela 讲到说，如果你房子地基附近的土壤呢太容易saturated 就是饱和吸水系的饱和，它的拼法是 SATURATED 那这样子的话，你房子可能它的 levelness 就会出现问题。 levelness 就是它的水平LEVELNESS 或者是至少你的房屋就会开始不稳。如果你的房屋地基附近的土壤没有办法吸水，吸得不够好，或者是它没有办法排水，其实比较重要应该是排水如果排水不好的话，那它有吸得太多的水，那对于房子的稳定性就会产生影响。
And then the article brings up another issue, which is basements. In the United States, most houses in the cold parts of the United States are built with basements because basically the ground freezes. So you have to get below the level of the ground freezing in winter in order to build a stable foundation. And so since you're digging down that far anyways, you might as well put a room down there. So that's what a basement is. But if the soil around your basement also has too much water in it, it's very easy for the water to come in through the wall of your basement, and so basement leaks can occur.
所以when there's too much water 有太多水 to be drained 要排放，也就是说你排放不及，有太多水你没办法排放， drained away 就把它排放掉， by the soil 由这个土壤排放掉。所以如果你有太多的水让土壤没有办法把这些水排放掉的话呢，那 basement leaks 就是地下室的漏水 can occur 有可能会发生。
In fact, it has been estimated, so some people have figured out that 98% of basements in the United States are likely to have some type of water damage. And I'm thinking, really? Nearly 100% of houses leak in their basements? And then I thought, yeah, because our basement leaked once. And then my dad took care of it, but it happens. It happens. It happens, and then you have to do something.
Yeah, 好，所以 in fact 事实上 it has been estimated that 就是有人估计过大概有 98% 的在美国的地下室美国房子的地下室里面有 98% 呢 are prone to 这个片语很重要to be prone to 就是表示容易发生，尤其是指不好的事情，叫做 are prone to。
Yeah.
好，那一个比较难一点的字但意思差不多的，你可以说 are susceptible to那就是 susceptible to be susceptible to。
And the difference between those two words is be prone to is much more common. Be susceptible to is slightly less in likelihood.
好，所以这个差别在于 are prone to 是非常可能就是很容易可能会发生，那 susceptible to 就是比较少会发生，但是有可能会发生好，所以他们是有可能会受到某一种的 water damage 水损害。
Okay, so let's talk snow. In addition to the substantial or considerable damage to houses caused by rain, the enormous damage caused to houses by rain, another form of precipitation just means water coming down from the sky. So another form of sky water or precipitation poses a potential problem in certain climates, namely the cold ones.
好，然后呢，我们看到它 in addition to 除了这个 substantial 就是 considerable 相当大的 damage to houses 对于房子的相当大的一些损害 caused by rain 就是 that is caused by rain 除了雨水会造成的对房子相当大的损害之外呢， another form of precipitation 就是降雨所以另外一种降不一定是降雨，降水所以可能是降雨，但是或者是降雪像在这里，所以另外一种从天上降下来的水的形式，它怎么样呢？ poses a potential problem。 pose 在这里就是 present 一个 problem 呈现一个问题 present 或者是 constitute a problem 形成一个问题所以它比较像是 constitute 那 constitute 它的拼法是 constitute 所以另外一种形式的降水，它会形成会 constitute 一个 potential problem 一个潜在的问题 in certain climates 在某些气候它会形成潜在的问题，因为有些地方不下雪，那所以在会下雪的地方它会形成问题。
So snow, particularly the variety with a wet, heavy form, is a threat. Now, I think people in Taiwan don't necessarily know this about snow. Snow has many different kinds. The wetter the snow, the heavier it is. The drier it is, the lighter it is. Now, we just said that snow is water, but snow is frozen water, and so there's air in there. Mm-hmm. So basically, the drier it is, the more air is inside that. Mm-hmm. So a very wet, very heavy snow is super heavy. So that's a threat because a heavy snow that sticks to your roof because wet snow sticks. That means that suddenly your roof has thousands of pounds of stuff on it that it didn't have yesterday. So that means it suddenly is bearing all this weight. And so that weight is something that you have to build in. So builders typically or usually factor this in or calculate this in or build this in when constructing roofs to ensure that they don't sag, which means bend down, crack, meaning that the beams have like
an opening
in it, or straight up collapse under the strain. The strain is the problem. That's also one reason why in northern climates, houses always have really steep roofs. You can tell how northern a house is by how steep it is because they're basically trying to get the snow to slide off before it becomes too heavy. So the steeper the roof is, the more northern the house is.
好，所以雪呢，有的雪它含水量比较大，这种时候这种雪就会比较重。那如果这个雪它比较干燥的话，它里面比较多空气的话，它就比较不会那么重啊。所以它这里讲到说 snow 雪，尤其是 the variety 就是那种种类啊，那种种类的雪，什么样种类的雪呢 ？With a wet heavy form， 它如果是很湿很重的那种形式的雪呢 ，is a threat， 它是个威胁。好，所以呢 ，builders 就是房屋建造者。Typically, 他们通常会 factor this in. To factor something in 就是把它列入为考量的因素，列入考虑。When constructing, 当他们在建造 roofs, 建造屋顶的时候，他们会把这些列入考虑。这个地方是不是常常下雪？下的雪是比较常是哪一种雪？那目的是 ensure 确保一下 they 就是屋顶呢不会 sag 是下陷 ，crack 是裂开 ，collapse 是崩塌。Under the strain 是压力所以在雪的压力之下呢，这个屋顶不会裂开崩掉等等的那所以刚刚 Angela 讲说，其实这个靠近北边的房子呢，他们的屋顶常常会做成只有斜坡的那这样子的话，希望雪自己可以滑下来他刚刚讲用那个字 steep 就是陡峭 steep， 那越北呢，那个雪更大的地方，那屋顶可能更尖这样子的话，雪更容易自己掉下来。
Or modern houses actually put heaters on the roof, so to warm the snow to make it slide off.
那现代的建筑事实上有的时候会在屋顶上面放这个加热器把那个雪加热一下，让它自己掉下来，变成水掉下来。
That's usually in Germany, though.
通常是德国
Yeah. So rain and snow are obvious threats, but sun and wind, why would those things be a threat to our house? Well, let's find out. Meanwhile, other elements, namely the sun and wind, also impact homes over time. So it's not immediate impact, but as the time builds up, as the impact builds up, it does have an effect.
Meanwhile, 在此同时，其他的 element 在这里指的是自然力通常是复数，像风雨阳光都是 elements 所以其他的 elements 这个字本来就是常常用复数的。那 namely 也就是说，像我们刚刚谈过的下雨跟降雪，那其他的 elements 包括太阳还有风，他们也会 impact 或者 impact， 如果念动词的话，就是会影响到 homes， 影响到家 over time 就逐渐地经过一段不特定的时间 gradually throughout an indefinite time.
So the strong heat in some regions, like Taiwan, takes a heavy toll on wood. If something takes a toll on something, it means that it's a burden on it. And it weakens it. The heat weakens the wood and causes it to age faster than normal. And when wood ages, it becomes less strong.
好，所以 strong heat 酷热in some regions 在某些地区的酷热 takes a heavy toll on 就是对什么什么造成严重的损害。那个 toll 就是 loss 或者是 damage。好，所以酷热的天气对于木头会造成严重的损害。那 weakening it 会让木头变弱weaken 就是使它变弱，然后呢 causing it 使得木头 it 就是指木头 to age 就是老化 faster than normal 好，会让木头呢比正常情况之下老化的更快那酷热会造成这个结果。
And then there's high wind, such as that found in hurricanes, which we talked about earlier this month. Tornadoes and other powerful storm systems can tear off parts of houses or even just tear your whole house apart in the case of a tornado.
High wind 就是强风用 high 这个字来表示强的意思 such as that 就是 high wind that 表示 high wind 所以强风例如什么样的强风呢？你可以在这个飓风 hurricanes 或者是龙卷风 tornadoes 里面找到的看到的那种强风还有其他的 powerful storm system 其他威力强大的这个暴风系统里面可以碰到的那种强风，总之就是强风了它可以 tear off 就是撕掉 parts of houses 可以把房屋的某些部分撕掉最常先撕掉的大概就是屋顶了。
Yeah, I once spent a typhoon watching my neighbors roof over their apartment building being ripped off. It took about an hour and a half and then it flew away and it was so wild.
Wow.
Yeah, so tearing off parts of houses is an accurate term because it just got torn off.
Yeah.
So thus, therefore, good home construction and maintenance are essential if you want to keep having a house.
所以呢，好的房屋建筑跟维护呢 are essential 就是必要的，非常重要的。
Okay, we have a couple questions for you, a couple meaning four. Number one is, what disagreement is mentioned in the passage? So this is talking about day one.
好，文中提到了有什么样的分歧呢？
And the answer is D, when the first houses were built.
好，所以答案是 D， 第一批房子是什么时候盖的？那这个大家会有一些意见的分歧。
And number two, which word in the day one passage means moving from one place to another instead of living in one specific place all the time?
所以他要你找这个东西的同义字在第一篇文章里面有哪个字是这个意思呢？
And that word is nomadic. Isn't it nice that we have one word to substitute like 16 words?
Yeah, 所以答案是 nomadic 就游牧式的意思。
18 words. Number three, according to the day two passage, so today's passage, why does a water leak cause serious damage if it is not handled appropriately?
好，根据第二天的文章，为什么漏水如果处理不当会造成严重的损害呢？
And the answer is because rot and mold take root.
好，答案是 rot 就是腐烂跟这个霉菌呢可能会滋生 take root.
And number four, fill in the blanks with the information contained in the day two passage about the impacts of weather conditions on houses. So we're going to say which weather condition is A, B, or C.
好，所以根据第二天文章中关于天气状况对房屋影响的讯息来填空。
So the impact on the house is it may tear houses apart. So A is wind.
所以答案是 A 是 wind， 因为它会把房子撕裂。
And a housetop may collapse because of it. This answer is B, snow.
好，那 B 说这个房屋的屋顶可能会因为这个东西而坍塌，那我们要写的是 snow.
And it can make wood less strong and cause it to become old quicker. So the answer to C is sun.
它可能会让木头比较变弱，而且让木头更快老化。这个呢，答案是太阳 sun 或者是其实你写 heat 也可以因为它这个文章里面谈到这个东西是呢 extreme heat.
So now that we've laid out the basics of taking care of a house, go forth and build and maintain good quality houses and live happily. And so also join us tomorrow or the next time for more Ivy English. Until then, bye-bye.